Hey, what's up? It's Comic95, the Savior, and for this video, I'm going to give you 20 little tips, tricks, whatever you want to call it, basically random things about your life here in Japan for people that are staying here long term, whether you are a student or working, information that I found to be extremely useful and that I wish I knew before I came to Japan. Some of these things I just learned this year and last year, so I would like to share that with you. And of course, as always, some of these tips might overlap with other videos that I have, but I'm putting them all here and making sure that they are on my channel in case I wrongly remembered something. I have over 100 videos, you guys. So let's get to it. Number 1, my first tip for you is you don't have to go out and actually get a Japanese cell phone or phone number. You can easily buy a number right from your home country via Skype. They do ask you to, honestly, only use the number, get a foreign phone number if you're actually living in that country, etc. But of course, there's nothing stopping you. This is extremely helpful for people that are new to the country that either cannot afford a cell phone or don't have, a visa that is currently valid for long enough to get a plan. Also, if you know how things go in Japan, most people don't actually use their cell phone. Cell phones are only, when I say cell phone, I mean their cell phone number. Cell phones are typically only used for business, work-related stuff. Normally, your friends will not call or text your direct phone number. They will normally communicate with you via the Line app. I can't explain it to you guys, but basically, Line is like Facebook, Instagram, your regular phone number all in one. People use Line for everything. Even businesses use Line. Line is huge in Japan. There's no US equivalent of this app. It's all you really need. You don't need a Japanese phone number unless you are trying to get, an account set up. And of course, it looks a lot nicer on your resume if you have a Japanese phone number that employers can call you on. So it is kind of a need, and for those moments where it is a need, you can get a Skype phone number for just about $5. It's no more than 10, but I think it's $5 a month. Maybe it's $10 to get the initial number. And yeah, as long as you keep paying it, you can reserve it, you can add minutes, etc. So of course, if you do plan to use your phone, long time in Japan, you do want to get a regular phone plan because obviously Skype becomes more expensive if you're making long distance calls and making lengthy phone calls and sending lots of text messages. It will become more expensive than a Japanese phone, which might I add, Japan does not have the nice little phone plans that we have in the US. Cell phone usage is more expensive here than in America, and unlimited data is not so much of a thing. And just like in the US, even plans that claim to have it, it does slow down after you reach a certain amount of data that you've used for that month. Number 2, you can buy a Japanese signature stamp, HANKO stamp, pretty much anywhere. A lot of people believe this is really big fancy stamp that you have to get, at some specialty shop or that you have to have registered, etc. You don't. A lot of people are using a stamp that is actually not registered in their name. Excuse me, I got sidetracked. So yeah, you don't have to go and get it registered or whatever. A lot of people are actually using one that's not, legally registered to their name. It doesn't really make a difference. If it isn't, as a foreigner, they might ask you to sign your name next to it or, your signature, put initials or whatever. So, your first, last name, initials, 2 letters, dot, done. So normally you won't have to do that. They'll accept any type of stamp you have. You can choose a stamp with any name that you want. It doesn't have to be your actual name. It can be something completely different. My own stamp has not personally been registered as of the day that this video has been made. I actually had my boyfriend choose the kanji for my stamp, which spells out my legal first name, but in Japanese, and it's a play on words. It uses the kanji for my boyfriend's first and last name to create my first name. So it's actually kind of a cute, endearing type thing. But back on subject, yeah, you don't have to go spend a lot of money. You can actually get these at Daiso, or you can go and get it from tourist shops or whatever, like a mall, strip mall, arcade, wherever they have touristy stores. There's generally a stamp shop there because Asians, especially Chinese people and Koreans, they like to get these little stamps as souvenirs and bring them back to their home country. I'd say it's popular with Europeans too, but normally when I go there I see a lot of Asians at stores. So long story short, anywhere that's really popular with tourists, you can easily find. I personally got mine in Kyoto. Tokyo has way more shops, and again, you can even get them for 100 yen at a place like Daiso. They range in price, they vary based on the quality of the stamp. Mine's cost about $35. You can get ones that are significantly cheaper. Mine's is on the higher end, but even my stamp is not the nicest one that they had to offer. So don't worry about that so much. It's an easy fix if you're signing papers, trying to get an apartment or a bank account. You don't have to freak freak out. You can easily get this resolved quickly in less than a day. I literally got my stamp pretty much on the spot. I want to say maybe I don't think it was a day before. I think it was like an hour or two before I actually went to the real estate office to, you know, get all my stuff handled for my apartment. So yeah, don't worry if you don't have a stamp. You can easily get one here. Number 3, if you're struggling with finding, you know, an emergency contact or a guarantor in Japan, it's because you're not using my tips from my other videos on making friends here. I highly suggest that you take the time to create some accounts online, meet some new people, make some pen pals, some new friends you can hang out with, and more than likely they will understand that you're a foreigner and they'll gladly sign up to be your emergency contact. You can also ask, you know, if you have a boyfriend, you know, your friends. You can even ask your boss to act as your emergency contact and or guarantor. Guarantor is kind of a pretty big step, and honestly I would not put that burden on asking someone close to you because you might jeopardize your relationship. They might feel uncomfortable and stop talking to you. I personally would only ask someone to be an emergency contact if I've already been, you know, talking to them for a little while and they're internationalized. A really hardcore Japanese person that, you know, isn't really internationalized might get kind of freaked out by you asking. I would know. So yeah, be very careful with that, but yeah, don't freak out too much. Again, use your relations with people to your advantage. They have no problem using you for English. Use them to help you get an apartment. Simple as that. Doesn't cost them anything. Unless you go behind on your rent, then they will harass them with phone calls. So make sure that you do your part and you pay your bills on time. And yeah, finding them as a guarantor is harder to do, but this can actually be achieved more easily through your company that you're working at or your school versus, you know, through your friends or boyfriend here in Japan, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. Number 4, you can purchase a weekend pass, which will save you money, especially if you're hanging out with your friends or on a date over the weekend and you're going to be using the train going back and forth. You might find it worth it to actually just purchase a weekend pass. You don't have to worry about how many times you get on or off the train. You don't have to worry about trying to save money by riding your bike or walking, etc. in between. So don't forget that while your IC card is fun to use, sometimes it is fun and convenient. Sometimes it's best to actually buy the old-fashioned ticket and save yourself some money by using a weekend pass if for some reason you don't already have a monthly pass or a student, you know, monthly pass or whatever that you can already use. And of course, now you have moments where you just don't have the money for it, even although it will save you money in the long run. Maybe you can't afford to buy that monthly pass, so it is worth it to buy, you know, you might even get a weekly pass, whatever you have to do to save yourself some money in the meantime if you're going to be making trips, commuting back and forth. Number 5, if you're feeling overwhelmed by all of the fees that you have to pay when you first get an apartment in Japan, don't forget that you can actually ask for them to waive the brokerage fee. Not all companies will do this, but a lot of them will because they would rather get your money later than not at all. Now, if they're going to waive it, you can't ask them to waive it for like 2-3 months down the line, but you can ask them if they could wait maybe 2 to 3 weeks after you've paid your initial move-in fees and you've moved into your place, and then, you know, pay them the money that you owe them. You might even offer to, you know, pay them extra, like a prorated rate or whatever you have to do, but it most certainly is possible. Moving into Japan is not actually expensive in comparison to the US, but for the amount of money you're paying in rent, it is. For example, in the US, I'd say the average apartment in Chicago, where I'm from, you pay about $1,500 per month for rent. However, normally you also have to pay a security fee, a 2 months deposit, you have to pay for application fee, credit check, etc. By the time you add up all of that stuff, you're looking at $4,000 to $5,000 plus right there alone. In Japan, you're not going to be paying that much money, but since your rent here is only somewhere between $350 to no more than about $1,200, having to pay $3,000, $4,000 is kind of expensive. So yeah, and especially if you're a student or someone that's new working here, because not only is the amount in comparison to your actual rent high, but the salary here is half of that than, you know, in the US. The average person here is only making about $30,000 US dollars, whereas in America, $30,000 is basically poor. So yeah. Number 6, if you're looking to save some money, it is also usually cheaper to move into a new apartment at the end of the month. This is because they would normally prorate you. So you can end up saving anywhere from $100 to $300 or $400 if you are willing to move at the end of the month versus at the beginning of the next month. For example, it is cheaper to move at the end of June, maybe like June 25th, than it will be to move in July 1st or July 2nd. I can't really explain it very well in words, but as a real estate agent, trust me, I know what I'm talking about. I did it. So yeah. Number 7, if you're looking to get a bank account quickly, and especially if you don't have a work visa and or if you struggle with using Japanese, I highly suggest that you get an account with Japan Post. Japan Post has tons of ATMs. They're generally located at any train station, all tourist areas. Their hours are really good for their ATMs and their banks. They're normally open when other banks are not. They're typically open later as well, and they usually have some English speaking staff if you go to a major city, and sometimes even in smaller cities as well. They oftentimes have some forms that are available in both Japanese and English, which can also be super helpful. And I find that the staff there generally overall are a lot more helpful and accommodating towards foreigners in comparison to other banks. Another good bank is also Mizuho as well, but I have honestly heard people that have had mixed experiences. I didn't get a Mizuho account when I lived in Tokyo, but I know of other foreign friends from South Asia that claim to have dealt with, prejudice, tellers or whatever that questioned what they were doing in Japan and didn't, like their line of work and wouldn't help them get an account, etc. I don't know whether that's true or not. I got my account in Osaka and the staff was extremely nice, extremely helpful, and they could even speak some English. So, yeah, do that. You can get an account super fast and set it up easy, no cost, no fees, just simple banking. Number 8. Now, while this is not legal, keep that in mind. I'm just telling you what I've done, being honest. You do not have to update your address upon moving within 14 days. You are supposed to do it, do not get me wrong, but there's no real penalty for not doing it. Nothing's going to happen to you. In fact, no one's actually keeping tabs on when you moved. You can tell them any date that you want to on your application form. You can say that you moved in today. It doesn't matter. Sometimes life happens, you get busy. If you do choose to be an honest Abe, you will have to do some explaining, and they might give you other forms to fill out explaining why you didn't, update this sooner, because again, you're legally supposed to. But long story short, just do it in 14 days to keep things from being complicated. But should you find yourself going over those 14 days, why make things hard for yourself? It's a little white lie. I hate to tell you to lie, but just being real. Do it. Save yourself time, money, energy from having to explain yourself and potentially getting in trouble. Just go ahead and tell them I moved in yesterday or a week ago. Just make sure you remember what day. Use your phone so you don't seem fishy, but the staff isn't going to question you. They don't really give a crap. So you'll be advised to do this by Japanese people too. I've thought to go about things the honest way, and when I expressed to my employer about what was going on, they were like, let me just change the date in your application. Like, don't tell them that. So they'll encourage you to tell this lie too. It's not just me. Saving you some energy, peace of mind. Don't freak out if you've gone over the 14 days. You can say whatever date. No one's going back and checking. There's no proof that you moved on any particular day. They don't care. They're not going to look into it. It's not possible for them to even do that. Similar to number 8, number 9, while you're not supposed to do this, again, it's not the legal way to do things, but you also don't have to update immigration when you switch jobs or fill out that little application saying that you transfer jobs. I've even been advised at immigration at the information desk to do this, but I didn't do it, and I still got my visa renewed with a brand new company. They don't give a crap. Are you supposed to do it? Yes. Does it matter if you don't do it? No. There's always going to be someone that is that exception to the rule that was told, oh no, we can't give you a new visa until you do this. But the reality is you don't have to do it, and in most cases you won't be asked to. Should you do it to do things the right way? Yes, of course. But if you don't have time, don't have money, don't feel like doing it, you most certainly don't have to. They'll see that you change jobs when you try to renew your visa the next year. As long as you're doing legal work and doing what you're supposed to be doing, I wouldn't stress out and worry about it. Number 10, similar to numbers 8 and 9, if for some reason you do end up overstaying on your visa, don't freak out just yet. More than likely you're not going to get deported. You might end up getting questioned at immigration, have to explain yourself, but you're better off turning yourself in and explaining to them that you overstayed on your visa and figuring out what your next steps are. It's not really that complicated, and more than likely they will give you another visa option to help you stay in Japan and renew your visa, as long as you express to them that you wish to stay here and what you plan to do while you are here. It's a lot worse if you get caught by a police officer and they card you and you've overstayed, and now it's like, oh well, now you're only telling the truth because you got caught. It's a lot better for you to just go in and explain, hey, my visa's expiring for whatever reason, I don't have a way to renew it, I need you guys help, what can I do, tell me, what should I do about this? What visa can you give me to help me out right now? Versus if you allow it to, you know, pass the deadline. However, if it does happen, again, doesn't matter if you're a month late, go into the office, handle it yourself. Do not let the police drag you in. If that happens, you are pretty much guaranteed to be getting the boot from the country and or getting in some kind of trouble. So I would try to avoid that if possible. But again, more than likely, if you do overstay it, my boss, who is actually Turkish, not somebody that is benefiting from privilege, so you can't say, oh, it's because you're American, whatever. My boss is a Turkish man. And even with him, he overstayed on his visa. They questioned him, he got in trouble, but he wasn't, you know, put in jail. They didn't give him some crazy fine, whatever. And now here he is, my boss, with a wife and kids, and, you know, life is good for him. He's been here for years now, and he started off as a student. So just keep all of that in mind. He went from being a student to getting a work visa. He's not a native English speaker. He's not American. He's not technically white. So again, if you overstay, there's still hope. Don't freak out. You can most certainly still get a new visa and or renew your visa. It is possible to do here. Number 11, if for some reason you lose your visa status, it is possible to still stay in Japan and just simply switch your visa to something such as designated activities. For example, if you're a student and you weren't able to find a job in time upon graduating, you can switch to designated activities, which allows you to legally work part-time. You don't need a visa sponsor for this. All you literally have to do is go in and prove that you have, you know, that you meet the criteria in order to work. I believe you do need to have a bachelor's degree and basically proof that you have the ability to get yourself a full-time job here. The visa is only good for about 6 months. It can be renewed, but generally that doesn't happen. So you do need to take these 6 months seriously and find yourself another job. Again, you don't want to wait until you get pulled off of the street. Go into immigration yourself and explain to them that you want to search for a job, for a full-time job, and you need this visa so that you can, you know, do that, and you want to have legal permission to work part-time. This is good for any foreigner. You don't need to be American. You don't need to be a native English speaker. So for those of you that are not from the US and aren't native speakers, you're not from the UK, Canada, Australia, etc., this will give you extra time that you might need to try to find a job at a Japanese company and, you know, maybe even improve your Japanese so that you can get one of these jobs or take an exam, etc. It allows you to legally work and live here, but do keep in mind that the visa does come with limitations with the work that you can do as well as the housing and stuff that you can get, because most people will not take a chance on someone with a 6-month visa. Normally you need a visa that is good for 1 to 2 years in order to get a job here and or to, you know, get normal housing. So you're probably going to be looking at part-time work, a share house, etc. And of course you can always explain to these people that you're searching for a full-time job and that you will be getting one and renewing your visa and staying here for longer. Always emphasize that. Put your best foot forward. Give yourself a better chance at getting hired or getting approved for these jobs, places, houses, etc. You know, do your research. You'll be fine. I'll also add that another reason why you might need to use this visa or be in this situation, if for some reason during the process of you getting your visa sponsored by another company or renewed, you decide to quit or you get fired, etc., your job can cancel your visa if it has not already been placed in your hands, but they cannot cancel your visa once you already have it. They can call immigration and say, hey, we decided not to hire them. And in that situation, you will need to, you know, go in and fill out, you know, a little bit of paperwork. And in that situation, you can request to get a designated activities visa and express that you want to find another job and continue to work in Japan. That is a rare situation and probably won't happen to anyone, but it's a possibility. And because of that, this is information that you can use. Number 12. You can choose the exact spelling that you want to have, not only for your name when dealing with and talking to people, but even for your HANKO stamp. A lot of people don't know this, not just for their stamp, but even when you're filling out, you know, confidential or important forms, etc. Whatever you put down on that form is how you're telling them to phonetically pronounce your name. Do not let a Japanese or a foreign person that claims to be an expert at the language tell you how to spell your own name. It does not matter how your name is written, or, you know, in English or whatever, you know, country you come from. What matters is the pronunciation. Japanese is a very phonetic language. It is not like how English is, where your name can be pronounced totally different from how it is spelled according to phonics. In Japanese, everything follows those phonetic rules 99.9% of the time. So even although your name might be spelled one way, all of those letters exist in Japanese, meaning that your name does not consist of letters that you can't properly make in Japanese, such as an X or a W or a V, etc. However, What you can do is find the closest phonetic spelling that sounds correctly to your ears. Not Google Translate, not your boyfriend, not your girlfriend, not your Japanese friend, not your boss. Based on what you hear when you type those characters into Google Translate. What sounds most like your name? And based on that, you decide how you spell your name. It doesn't matter if you and the person next to you have the same name. You might pronounce your name differently than the person next to you. Thus, you might want to use different characters. Great example is the name Brittany. There's different ways to spell it and say it. Some people say Brittany. Some say Brittany. Some say, I don't know. You get my point. There's so many different spellings. Someone's name spelled Brittany with, an A-N-Y, and someone with an N-E-Y. They might get different phonetic spellings based on, Google Translate or talking to a Japanese person. But you might know how you want your name to be pronounced better than they do because it's your name. You know what you want to hear when people say your name. So long story short, write your name how you prefer to hear it, said phonetically. And you can always change this at any time. I personally changed the way that I wrote my name from when I first came to Japan because I used to follow the way that I was told versus, how I currently do it now. So keep that in mind with both your first, middle, and last name. There's no legal rules to this. You're a foreigner. Your name does not have to be registered yet unless you plan to become a citizen. Then you do. But even then, like when you have kanji or katakana for your name, you're often asked, even Japanese people, to write down what is the phonetic pronunciation of your name because there's different pronunciations, different kanji characters that you can use that can have two totally different, readings depending on what kanji it is next to. So do keep that in mind. Number 13, you can choose what names are on your utility bills as well as if you want to even use your full name or use a nickname, etc. You can use a nickname, you can include or exclude your middle name. You can pretty much put it however you want to. I highly suggest keeping your last name though, but yeah, you can pretty much do that however you please. There's no real rules as far as that goes. Again, it's totally legal, you can do it, but of course you should be honest and put whatever name you are, most commonly known as. I don't recommend doing anything crazy like calling yourself Sly Cooper or something, but again, whatever you prefer to be called, you can put that down on your utility bills, things like internet, your gas, electricity, water, etc. Nobody cares. They're not going to card you and check your ID. You're just going to fill out a form and tell them what you want to be called, and once again, you would choose the phonetic pronunciation of your name. You can choose to have your name written on your bills in katakana, or if you prefer, you can have them written on your bills in romanji. It's totally up to you. Again, it just completely depends on who's setting up your stuff and if you're there or not. Sometimes if you're doing it over the phone and the person's not physically there or it's being done through a Japanese person, it will oftentimes end up being written in romanji. But if you want and prefer, they can have it spelled out in katakana for you. It's personal preference, doesn't really matter. The only person can see it is the guy at the convenience store. And if you're smart and want to pay your bills on time, you can have this all set up, automated, where it's taken out of your bank account. Never have to worry about your electricity and water getting turned off again. Number 14, while it is legally required for you to pay a pension here in Japan if you are a working individual, whether you are foreign or Japanese, you can get a waiver on it though as a foreigner. I'm not sure about Japanese people, where you can go an entire year without paying your pension. I don't recommend doing that, but you can get a waiver and give you some time to get everything together, put money aside, and then begin paying your pension. So don't freak out over that if you haven't been paying it, but you do want to get in contact with your company and figure out what's the best way to go about, getting that together, because you will be slapped with a bill upon trying to leave the country. And when trying to do things like become a permanent resident, that will become an issue, and they will send you a bill in the mail asking you to pay whatever money you owe eventually. So you don't want to get to the end of the year and end up owing like $30,000 because you weren't paying your pension month to month like how you're supposed to. They are keeping tabs on you. Don't forget your pension. And also keep in mind that a lot of the times your company is not going, most companies I believe do make sure you're paying your pension, but a lot of them do not, including my last job. Why don't they do this? Why are they trying to hurt their workers? Because when you do sign up for the pension, which you're legally supposed to pay, you don't have to get it through your company, but a lot of people choose to because most employers are required to legally match whatever you put into your pension. So if you're paying, $300 US on your pension, they have to match it and put in another $300, and that's coming out of their company funds. They don't want to have to do that. This is how it's been explained to me. I can be somewhat wrong. Things changed. I've also heard recently that they're going to update the pension and make it where everyone is paying the same amount across the board, because as of right now the amount varies based on whether or not you do have children, how long you've been in Japan, the type of work you're doing, your salary, etc. So there are changes that are happening over the years, but do keep in mind that you do have to pay a pension. You do want to look into that, and you do need to ask your employer about it and be very, firm with it. Like, hey, I want to get this done today. What do I need to do? Help me out. It's oftentimes also linked together with the health insurance that your company provides. But again, you don't have to get your pension through your job, but if you don't, they normally require you to legally sign a form basically saying that you're not going to get it with them, but that you agree to get your pension through somewhere else, because again, you have to legally get it, and your job employer, they want to cover their butt too, so that you don't come after them and lie to immigration or whatever and say, hey, I didn't know this, etc. So that's that. Number 15, if you find yourself low on money and you still have, foreign currency, you can always go to a major mall, major train station, and find a special Mizuho ATM, as well as special, ATMs at Lawson or Daiso, in which you can exchange foreign currency. They're normally yellow and black machines. They stand out. They say like money exchange, foreign currency, whatever, all over it. You can't miss them. So yeah, you'll find them in the most random of places, but they're everywhere. You don't have to look very hard for them, but that'll really come in handy if you're freaking out and like, oh my god, I didn't, exchange enough money at the airport. You're fine. You don't need your mom to send you money. But if worst comes to worst, don't forget that you can have money sent to you if you are using, a foreign card. You can ask someone to make a deposit from abroad into your account. They can send you money via PayPal, etc. And there is Western Union and other money, pickup services that do exist in Japan, but in my opinion, they're not as easy and convenient to use. So do keep in mind that there are ways to get foreign currency as well as to exchange foreign currency from within Japan. Number 16, you can legally break your contract. Your employer cannot stop you. It doesn't matter that you signed a contract saying that you were going to work for 2 years. If you decide to work for 3 weeks, it looks bad, but you can most certainly break your contract. It does not matter. Immigration is not going to strike this against you. I would know, because I've left plenty of jobs in Japan on bad terms, and I'm pretty sure they've all probably called immigration like, hey, she's not working for us anymore. And guess what? Guess who's still here? Guess who's been here for multiple years? Me. Doesn't work that way. Don't let them threaten or bully you into staying at a company that's being abusive and or treating you bad unless you need the money and just want to get a letter of recommendation, whatever the case is. I don't recommend leaving your employer hanging, but do what's best for you and your mental health. You have to put yourself first. Your employer doesn't give a crap about you. They will find a new teacher. They don't care about you. Trust me. I learned this the hard way. Number 17, one of the biggest lies that I've been told, and I made a video on this, you most certainly can change your visa status from within the country. It's not as easy to do as if you were to get the appropriate visa while living abroad, but you most certainly can switch visa statuses. For example, you can go from a student visa to a spouse visa or a student visa to a working visa. I have personally done it. It's actually super easy. It's not hard. It's a lot easier than doing it from abroad because you don't need the whole COE and everything all over again. All you literally need is some, documents from your employer proving, they pay their taxes and that they can legally support you, showing how much money they make, as well as a contract showing that you have a legal contract for at least 1 year, preferably, 2 years, whatever. That's the way that this works. After you have that, you fill out the little application form yourself, you turn it in, show them, give them a copy of your degree, passport, basic things like that, and voila, you get a brand new, working visa based on whatever job you have. If it's an Eikaiwa, AOT position, you'll get an instructor visa. If you're working at an international school, you'll get a specialist in humanities, engineer visa. That's the way that it goes. A lot of employers aren't familiar with this process because they're used to either sponsoring from overseas or dealing with people that have spouse visas. So if you're on a student visa like how I was, you might have a hard time trying to persuade and get people to listen to you and understand that yes, you can get a new visa within the country. It might be a challenge, but again, it's very easy to do as soon as you get them to understand, look, this isn't just me. Go to immigration's website. Here's the application form. Take my word for it. It can happen. It has happened. I am living, breathing, walking proof. I came here as a student. I am now working. So that's that. Number 18, as soon as you come to Japan, I highly suggest that you get all the important things that you need right away if you have the money for it. What I mean by important things is you want to get a Japanese cell phone, you want to open your bank account, you want to get your pocket Wi-Fi, not the little like touristy kind of pocket Wi-Fi that's expensive for the month, but I mean the Japanese kind where you only pay like $20 for the entire month for unlimited. The reason why you want to set these things up now is because most places will not allow you to sign a contract if your visa is not good and valid for at least the entirety of your contract, which is generally 1 year minimum. They can be as long as 2 years. They will not buy your story about, oh, I'm gonna renew my visa when I graduate or whatever. They don't care. Trust me, I tried that. I even went with my Japanese boyfriend. But anyway, yeah. When you go ahead and you do that, they'll be like, oh, yeah, sorry, you know, it has to be good for, you know, like the time. They will not listen to you. They don't care because in their mind, nothing's keeping you here. How do they know you won't go home in 6 months? Maybe you think you're gonna have, you know, stay here for a year, but you end up leaving, you know, in the 5 months that your visa was good for. So I highly suggest getting this stuff right now because you will have a hard time signing contracts. Even things like getting jobs. Some jobs that don't want to sponsor your visa, like if it's part-time and they cannot, they won't bother hiring you if you're not, you know, going to be here for at least 6 months or a year. So I suggest, you know, hopping on it, getting to it, and signing up for this stuff as soon as possible. Because, for example, if you're coming here on a visa that's only good for a year and you don't sign up for this stuff during the first month, you cannot get it next month because they're like, oh, your visa's only good for 11 months. The contract is for 1 year. They are that level of petty. I know from experience because I dealt with the 1 year visa and I was like, dude, I just got my visa. I had trouble getting a My Number card because my visa wasn't going to be good for an entire year. And I had to explain to them, like, it's a need. This is not a matter of how long my visa is good for. Plus, I'm going to renew it anyway. But they were like, oh, when you renew your visa, you have to renew your My Number card. I'm not asking you. I know that. My boss is asking for it. I need it to get lots of stuff in Japan. Like, it's not just for that. But whatever. You get my point. Number 19. If you're bad with directions, clumsy, anxious, get lost easily, you most certainly, and if you're not good at speaking Japanese, I will add that too, you most certainly want to ask if you're meeting someone for, you know, a date, hanging out with your friends, going to an interview, any type of important event that's going on. You should ask them for the address in both Japanese and in English. When I say English, I mean Romanji. And if possible, have them tell you what is located next to their place. Google Maps and Apple Maps are not always right. They will sometimes give you directions that are completely wrong and ask for you to get off at a stop that's 1 or 2 past your destination or 1 or 2 before. You want to make sure that you know where the closest train station is, what the best exit is to take, etc. You don't want to be relying on information from Google Maps all the time. It can be a lifesaver most of the time, but every once in a while it will give you completely way off information. This is also super helpful in the event that your Wi-Fi dies, your phone suddenly dies, you lose your phone, lose your Wi-Fi, something crazy happens to you. You know what to look for, what to ask for. Don't ask for something weird. Ask them for a major landmark that's nearby, something big that'll stand out. For example, they're across the street from a 7-Eleven, not we're next to, you know, this bread shop that's around the corner, whatever. Like, no, what's next to you? If possible, get as much detailed information about what's in the surrounding area. And do not forget to also look at Google Maps yourself. You can check out the map and see what's in the surrounding area on your own and on your way there, so to avoid getting completely lost. Always consider, you know, taking pictures, etc. so you know where you are going. Take screenshots of the route so you know how to get there and how to get back. And ask them for a phone number that they can be contacted at in the event that you do become lost. And this way you can call and show them that you're serious, you're trying to get there, but you really just can't find it. It's always best to leave about an hour earlier than you need to, so that this way if you do get lost, you can call plenty of time instead of being a hot, sweaty mess and freaking out like, oh my god, I can't find the place, and it turns out you're 30 minutes away. So please be mindful of the time. They're very big sticklers on time. Being late for, you know, something constantly, especially like interviews or work or hanging out with your, you know, boyfriend, girlfriend, it can be the end of a relationship, the loss of a job. So keep that in mind. And last but not least, number 20, in the event that you do find that you are lost, it is always best to know the name of your station. You do not need to know the name of your exact station, but when I say your station, I mean the station, the biggest, most major station in your area that you can easily get to. So what I mean by that is, if you live in Tokyo, not Tokyo Station, although that will work too, but a station like Shinjuku or Shibuya, whenever I would get lost when I was in Tokyo, I would always ask, where's Shibuya Station? Like, how can I get to Shibuya Station? Because I know from Shibuya Station, I can easily get to Kitasando. I know that I could take, the train line, the Fukutoshin line. However, if I ask them, how can I get to Kitasando Station? Nobody knows the name of that station. Nobody knows where that is. If someone's well versed with Tokyo, they might know that specific station name. But there's tons of stations on the Tokyo Metro line. The likelihood of them knowing how to get to that specific station is slim to none. And unfortunately, most Japanese people aren't going to stop what they're doing and try to find that station for you. They're just going to say, I don't know. Or this train doesn't go there. I had a chick, I was literally in Tokyo, asked her, I just said to her, like, Shibuya where? Like, this train. I couldn't speak Japanese back then. And she lied and told me no. And so I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm pretty sure that either this train or that train does. And sure enough, it ended up being one of those trains. And I was pissed off because I'm like, I asked you a simple question. But long story short, normally people, will give you the correct answer. You want to know the major stations so that this way you can easily ask someone for help. Even if your destination was to go somewhere else, if you can get back to that major station, you will have English-speaking staff. You'll have foreigners there. You'll have Wi-Fi there. You have the ability to get help. If for some reason you can't get back to a major station on your own, consider asking a bus driver, a taxi driver, stop a cab, wait at a bus stop and wait for the bus driver to come. Do what you have to do. If that's not, going to help you in the moment, consider walking. Walk until you find a convenience store. All of the convenience stores have free Wi-Fi. You can go there and connect to the Wi-Fi and get directions on how to get where you need to go. And if your Japanese is good enough, you can even consider asking the staff for help. So again, utilize the Wi-Fi, not restaurants, but the convenience stores there, to get your map up and running and find out where you need to go. Even if you live in the middle of nowhere, if you can figure out how to get to Shinagawa Station, has to get to Shibuya Station, Shinjuku Station, you can take those trains to get to wherever you live, and or to find the train that gets you to wherever you live. So again, like, it's a total lifesaver just knowing the name of those stations. Whenever possible, try to have your home address. That's what your Zaidu card is, for your residence card. That'll save you. You want to have your address on you so you can literally just show it to people, find a police officer and be like, look, like, this is where I live, help me get back to my home. So again, always try to leave the house having Wi-Fi, a battery of your own, so you don't have to freak out like this. But life happens. I had a really bad situation where my phone was on like 5% battery. I was lost in the middle of Kanagawa. I missed my last train stupidly because I had anxiety, and thankfully I was able to make a phone call to my friend and he was able to come back and meet me, got a taxi, etc. But I was so freaked out because I couldn't speak, read, or write in Japanese. It was in the middle of the night. My phone was dead. I didn't have pocket Wi-Fi back then. I only had the Wi-Fi from my data plan. So that's that. Those are my 20 random tips and tricks to help you out here in Japan. There's so much more that we can go on and talk about forever and ever and ever, but I hope that you found all of this stuff helpful. If you have some tips, tricks, and advice you would like to give other foreigners that are coming to Japan for the first time, maybe second, third, whatever, please feel free to leave a comment down below and tell me what you suggest doing, what you think, etc. Again, what I say is not gospel. I'm telling you what I've learned and seen from my own personal experience. Everything that I'm saying is not the best advice for you to take. I'm just giving you honest advice as though you were my friend. Some of the things that I mentioned are not entirely legal and you should not do. But if you're in a situation where you don't have a choice, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. But to help yourself, try to avoid doing things like overstaying or not reporting when you move, etc. But if life happens and you cannot, we're human, don't freak out. Being worried and freaking out and anxious is not going to resolve your issue. You have to take action yourself. So thank you so much for watching this video. I'd appreciate if you give me a like and leave a comment down below. And as always, you can follow me on my other social media pages. I have a Facebook page, an Instagram, a Snapchat, and a Twitter account as well. And yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you'll watch another video.